Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, regardless of where you're from or wherever you may be from. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Friday Morning at the Fun House. And look who's here with me as he is every Friday morning, Mr. Martin Popoff. Good morning, my friend.
Yes. Morning, sir. This is going to be an interesting one. We thought we could never do this, but what the heck? Let's do this on this
Might as
nice,
well,
bright,
right?
sunny but cold Toronto morning. We got out to a Jays game yesterday, which was pretty cool. Family Jays game, spur of the moment, and they won. They're doing rather well, but yeah,
both of our teams are doing pretty good. My Mets are doing really good. Well, they didn't have a good game last night. They got shut out by the Dodgers, but they flew cross country in the span, and then boom, you got to play a game, and so that's can't be too easy. But sunny here today. I don't know. So it's cool by you? It's actually fairly warmish here. But I woke up to rain. Now the sun's out, and we got some hellacious downpours yesterday. Holy moly! Thought it was like the sky was opening up, but been a weird week for the weather. But top 10 songs of all time from us. As last week we counted down our 10 favorite albums of all time, and one of the things we spoke about is how sometimes these lists of our favorites change over time. So myself personally, I did a top 30 albums a couple of years back, and my top 10 changed a little bit, and I went and rewatched my top 10 songs from a couple of years ago and compared it to what I was thinking today. And a lot of usual favorites that will repeat from last time. A couple of other things came into play, I think. But more importantly, I think what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure I incorporated some different genres, right? So, obviously there's going to be a good chunk of hard rock and metal classics that I have loved my whole life. They're still going to be here, but I really love like classic 70s pop songs, and there's a lot of them that mean a real lot to me. So I tried to take that into consideration, and I grabbed a couple of those favorites to interject in my list, just like I'm sure you're going to have some surprises in your list as well. Yep. So I think that kind of makes this a little bit more fun, because not everything will be expected. Some will, but there's some surprises in my list as well. So I'll have Martin kick us off with this number 10.
Yeah, so I definitely want to comment on that as well. I mean, I think I've always thought this was kind of a ludicrous thing to try do, because there's lots and lots and lots of songs in the world, right? And it's like I love when you get the comment, especially if we get it with the songs thing. It's like, I can't believe you left that out, right? It's like, well, there are a lot of songs in the world, so
there are a lot of songs, and my ears are different than yours, right? Yeah,
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think what I wanted to do with this, and I totally agree with you, got different genres here as well, but I think there's a theme. I wanted to stay away from things that are too particularly objective, where it's like just this little song that has just like direct, plug in emotional impact to me, but it's just a stupid little song of 3 minutes with a break and a couple of verses and a couple of choruses. What I wanted to do is make sure that these songs shift over in most cases to a subjective level, where you could say, wow, there's a lot going on in there. And, some of them are longer for that reason. I mean, I think if you're going to win best song of all time, be one of the top 10 songs out of 2 or 3 or 4 million songs or 10 million songs that have been written out there in the world, or are possible for us in here, even just being a longer song is going to help you out in this. Just like when we did albums, it's like there's a couple of double albums in my list, right? So yeah, to kick off with, I wanted to start off with a morning wake up call and go with probably the heaviest thing on my list. And actually, yeah, I mean, one of the more modern things, from Vulgar Display of Power, Mouth for War. So I have this in here as a stand-in for the idea of Bohemian Rhapsody and Sweet Action, and even Aerosmith Walk This Way, where I've always had that sort of fantasy thing is, boy, I would have loved to been in that band and shuffled into the boardroom and sat down with the label brass, who are dying to hear, okay, what's your new music, impressive sort of thing. And then the boom box or the stereo in the corner, and put it on and crank it up and play them something from the album. And I've often thought, those kinds of songs, that opening to Walk This Way, or the entirety of Bohemian Rhapsody, which kind of fell off my list, spoiler alert here. But I wanted to put this in here because I thought boy, that incredible intro sequence and the riffs that are there and the production and that gated drum sound and everything. I often would love to have been a fly on the wall and just watch the label brass be completely, totally impressed with how forward thinking and important and different and creative and a step beyond Metallica this band was proving to be. And the other song, it's also a stand-in for Cowboys from Hell, which is the same sort of thing. Yeah, that's even got an even more impressive opening sequence, a dramatic, build up to the song kicking off sort of thing. So yeah, it's in here at number 10 to kick things off in a loud and proud way. This song also, Pantera in general as a band, comes into that debate about how heavy can heavy ever get, and when is fast OTT drumming and beat flip over, when does that flip over into double time and a blast beat in black metal, and is that actually heavier sounding than a super fast song, that kind of thing, right? Or is extreme black metal production, like sucking all the bass out of it, is that, I mean, it's more terrible and apocalyptic sounding, but is it actually heavier? Pantera kind of fits in that. I've often said that Pantera, it's hard to say something gets heavier because they've got that groove thing in it, which, purists say, oh, that's too commercial to be heavy, but maybe that is, that for those tanks rolling through the desert sound is as heavy as it gets. And when you take the groove out of it and you go into technical death metal, does technical death metal really sound heavier than Pantera? Can you sound heavier than Phil Anselmo yelling at you? Is a black metal vocal heavier than Phil or whatever? So there you go. I wanted an impressive song that's put together really well, that's really catchy, it's obviously hooky, and again, that idea of, I know the label brass must have been super impressed hearing that song for the first time.
Heaviest stuff for the mainstream ever? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Slipknot did it again. We used to say that about Slayer.
Yeah.
Quiet Riot Metal Health is the first heavy metal album to hit number 1 or whatever, right? So it gets said along the way. But yeah, I mean, Slipknot was the same. We had that same discussion when Slipknot came out. It's like, I can't believe this is mainstream. This is nuts to be mainstream, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was pretty surprised when Pantera was at the top of the charts for those couple of years. And I was like, man, it's like, but nothing else, right? That was like, they were like the only metal band for the most part who, for those couple of years, who were really riding high on the charts. And it's just like, well, there's a lot of other bands that kind of fall on these same lines, but nobody's listened to them. But Pantera was kind of the cool band to follow for those.
You even think beyond Slipknot, I mean, Lamb of God is even more academic and complicated.
Yeah, they did very well for
super
themselves.
Heavy,
yeah,
extreme vocals, and it's like, how can those guys sell that many records, right?
Yeah. Yep. All right. So I also, to kind of clarify why I made some of my choices. So I like a lot of what you said about how some of these favorites could be longer songs that have some, really interesting things going on and then that make them special to us, or, that make them special for us to recommend to other people. And I think a lot of my tracks, my favorites here, include that stuff. But one of my criteria was like, do I still get as jacked listening to these songs today as I did 40 or 50 years ago? Do I still play them all the way through? And sometimes after I hear them, play them again. And while I'm listening to them, I get those little tingles going up the back of my spine. Because sometimes those songs that really hit you in a special way, you get that kind of warm and fuzzy feeling. And every one of mine, regardless of whether they're hard rock, metal, or pop, or prog, or whatever it is, I get that feeling still after hearing them all these times throughout all these years. So that's kind of how I picked mine. So coming in at number 10, I haven't done this in a while, but I'm going to do it today. I'm going to pull a Pardo today. I've got a tie for number 10 because I had both of these songs in mind, had to make my top 10 list. I couldn't leave one of them out. Just couldn't do it, Martin. Couldn't do it. So I said, screw it. Tie for number 10. So one of them is by a band called The Babies, and it's Every Time I Think of You, which people might be saying, kind of a sappy pop song, but man, what a great sappy pop song. An amazing John Waite vocal. I absolutely love the chorus. I love the addition of the female vocals doing the kind of point counterpoint in that. And I just think it's a fantastic song. And it's like whenever I listen to that Babies album, especially at the gym, and that song comes on, I'm like, I get into it. I'm kind of humming it to myself while people around me or, whatever. And then I'm like, repeat. I once about a year ago, I listened to it 4 times in a row. And I'm like, did I really just do that? I've heard the song a million times. I still love it that much. So that's one of them. My other tie for number 10, this is going to be a surprise to a lot of people. Again, I can listen to this song over and over and over again. I've loved this song since the early 70s. Carly Simon's You're So Vain.
Wow.
Exactly, right? It's like, what? I love this song. It's just it's got this mysterious vibe to it. I love her vocal. I love the fact you got kind of like an anonymous Mick Jagger in there singing it with her. I love the whole lyric and how everybody's been speculating for decade after decade. Who is she actually singing about? Is it Mick? Is it Warren Beatty? Is it this person? Is it James Taylor? Who is it? Right? Who cares? It's just a great song. So 2 pop songs tying for number 10 for me. Every Time I Think of You by the Babies and You're So Vain by Carly Simon. There you go.
Yeah. Wow. Now we're going to I can't believe Martin left You're So Vain off his list. I stopped listening after that, after he told me it wasn't on the list, right? Yeah, funny. Okay, so we started off with Pantera, and now we're going to Pete Townsend.
Nice.
A totally different thing, but I put Face Dances Part 2 on here. This is my favorite Pete album. I believe I even brought it up last time, and I would say Empty Glass is, I probably love that better than every single Who album as well. Could have had some Who songs on here, but I wanted to pick Face Dances Part 2 because, again, I wanted to move to that objective thing where it's like, this is a gorgeous pop song. Anybody who could listen to this could go, this should have been an absolute smash hit. But I also love the arrangement, that there's all these kind of like big panoramic Bruce Springsteen, huge orchestral things that go on later on. And it's got this big anthemic build to it. But it's just this gorgeous, beautifully put together, moving forward, it's got drums and all that stuff, pop song, and also a little bit of a hiccup beat where the timing is a little complicated in it. But the harmonies, the complication, the melody, the modulation in it. It's just a beautiful, beautiful song on this record. And possibly, this record gets a little bit of it, abuse for Pete sounding or seeming a little pretentious on it. It's a very, very soulful, intellectual. I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm just going to say absolutely what's on my mind. But that song is a little bit more, modestly written in the lyric, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful song. I love Pete's voice. Love his singing. So yeah, that's one that it hits me on a super emotional level. But again, I wanted to pick something that was put together with a little bit of craft as well.
Great song. Yeah, that's definitely his real artsy album.
Yeah,
real artsy album. And yeah, people either love it or they don't. And it's definitely one that demands a little bit more of your attention, I think. Plus, how cool is it? He's got a flying V on the cover, right? Has he ever played one live, right?
It's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, and in one of the greatest unplanned segues in the history of Sea of Tranquility, my number 9 song is Rock Bottom by UFO with another guy who plays a flying V. Okay. Rock Bottom has long, and this is probably, here we go, this is probably more expected on my list here. I absolutely love Rock Bottom. I love Michael Schenker, one of my favorite guitar players of all time. I think that's one of the greatest riffs, licks, whatever you want to call it, in hard rock history. The solo is amazing. It's a great headbanger of the song. It's even better on the live album, Strangers in the Night, but this is the one I picked here. But yeah, it's just classic, and it's long, and it just takes you down these twists and turns, and just shows you what a master Michael Schenker was at that age. How old was he here? 1920, something like that. Just amazing to think about it. So one of the great guitar riffs and solos of all time, and one of the great hard rock songs of all time, Rock Bottom by UFO.
Nice. Our band in the 80s played that song. That was one of the the later songs in this, because it's got that long section at the end. It's kind of like an encore type song, right?
Yeah.
To me, that would have been a stand-in for that. To me, that song always goes together with Scorpions' Virgin Killer, the song. the big whittly riff by the German, contingent, more or less, slash, right? So, the super impressed, because in the 70s, I mean, there was an adequate amount of heavy metal, but there wasn't tons and tons of it, right? And when you heard something really extreme like a Rock Bottom or a Virgin Killer, with some technicality, a Deep Purple Burn kind of thing, it stood out, right?
Yep.
So segueing us somewhat with, I guess, that last bit unplanned, I'm going to go to Rainbow, not exactly Deep Purple, but Rainbow and Lost in Hollywood. I've always raved about this song. Everybody knows I rave about this song. It's my favorite Rainbow song. I think it's the greatest Ritchie Blackmore riff. Tied with a bunch of other ones that are similar to this, but I'm going to put it number one because of what it goes into once the verse starts. I love all of those chords, gorgeous, regal playing and performances from everybody. I've always said this is my favorite Cozy Powell performance of all time. Starting off with that rapid military snare, and he just gets a grooviness, and Roger gets this tight, mid-rangey, urgent sort of production. It's got Don Airy at his peak with a gorgeous little classical section in it. The only thing I don't like about it is the title. I think the title takes you away from that regal British feel to it, and somewhat the lyric, but just the parts are amazing in this song. I like that it impresses me in a shorter amount of time than Light in the Black or Stargazer or Gates of Babylon. And this is, my favorite Rainbow album. And I think Eyes of the World is pretty far up there, close to a Stargazer, and so is A Danger Zone. But yeah, that song from this album, I think they just wrap it up in a package with just the perfect amount of economy, but also other parts that makes it just a Rainbow tour de force.
Yeah, and a great vocal from Graham on that.
Yeah,
it's quite good. If you heard the new Graham Bonnet Band album, it's really good.
Yes, yeah, he's incredible. Let's not get into that whole thing about I can't be in Alcatraz because of this reason or that, and then he makes the same kind of music, right? I don't like heavy metal. I was never a heavy metal guy. Every record's heavy metal, right?
I don't get it. The only thing it doesn't have, this album, it doesn't really have that neoclassical thing, which the Alcatraz album does, but it's still heavy, right? So it's crazy. All right, my number 8. This was not on my list back when I did this a couple of years ago, and maybe it's just that I've been listening to this album a ton in recent years, and this song specifically, I always really loved it, but it's now become one of my all-time favorites. The title track, To Minstrel in the Gallery by Jethro Tull, their heavy metal song, right? Or one of their couple of heavy metal songs. I mean, it's big and brash. You got that opening Martin Barr guitar solo. The riff is enormous. The chorus is great. It's just got this kind of regal, fantasy, majestic British thing going on, and Ian with the flute on the chorus. That's just great stuff. And it's one of their barn burner songs from early in the catalog. It's amazing how, like, for a band that's often thought of as a kind of a folk rock band or a prog rock band or a blues rock band, they have like these handful of like really heavy songs in their catalog that are approaching like early proto metal, and this is definitely one of them. It's on a great album. I love the album, and I love the song. Minstrel in the Gallery is my number 7.
Oh, there's some obscurity for you. Well, we'll follow with a little more obscurity. From Status Quo, I'm going with Backwater. And the reason I'm going with Backwater is that thing about the hair standing up on your arms, getting goosebumps. This song is 4 minutes and 18 seconds long. And at the 3:48 point, it's got the greatest single second of all of rock and roll history in it. When they come out of that long extended section of the guitar solo, and they're building and building and building, and they slam into another verse unexpectedly, and you can almost hear a little bit of a speed up to it. It's just a glorious rock and roll moment, and it's even a somewhat boogie rock moment, which surprises me. Normally if it's too traditional and boogie woogie, I'm not going to be a big fan, but there's some great, magic moments of Status Quo that way. But yeah, when they make that transition, when they come out of that long solo section and slam into that riff again, it's my favorite single second in all of rock and roll history. So it had to be on here for that. Plus the bonus is it's got that hilarious, Renaissance, unexpected, weird sort of intro to the whole thing. It's got this long, funny intro musical section that just kind of dies and it goes into a big crouch. And then actually at that point, it almost mirrors what they're going to do later, because after that slow build up, it kicks into the song. And it's just this great dialogue between these big guitars and just this trundling tanks rolling through the desert thing again, version of heavy metal. But yeah, if anything from this show, I want people to go listen to the 3:48 mark of Backwater off this album.
And while you're at it, listen to the whole album. That is my favorite Status Quo album and one of the coolest covers of all time, right? I mean, look at that.
Pretty bizarre, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me Opeth was not, Michael Ackerfeld was not in love with that cover when he did one of those more recent Opeth albums, right?
Yeah.
All right, drum roll coming in at number 7. I'm sure people are waiting for Brandy, You're a Fine Girl by Looking Glass.
Okay,
yes, indeedy. Greatest pop song of all time, bar none. I have been in love with this song since I was a wee little kid. I've told the story a million times of driving to the newsstand with Dad when I was a kid in his old Plymouth Fury to buy newspapers and comic books. And that song that summer was all over the radio, and I fell in love with it then, and I still love it now. And God, I can remember like last year when my wife and I went to Maine for a week vacation, and we were listening to like the satellite radio or Spotify or whatever, driving, the 4.5 hours up there. And that song must have come on heading up there like 5 times. And every time my wife was like, "There's your song, hon." Yes. And I cranked it up and I was like, I can just hear it over and over and over again. 3 minutes of just pop perfection. Too bad the band that was basically it for them, right? But as we know, members of that band went on to form Stars, and it's a whole other Megillah. But Brandy, You're a Fine Girl, Looking Glass.
Absolutely, yeah, great song, and quite a similar song to that, Megalomania from Sabotage. There we go. And here we've got the whole, okay, so this is my favorite Sabbath album. It's a super long song, 9:41, so it's got a lot going on, a lot of really cool parts to it. Love the slow parts, love when it picks up, love Ozzy singing on it. I looked in past books where I've got lists of top songs of all time, and I noticed that I had The Writ in as one of my top songs of all time. Oddly, I don't think, well, I'm just trying to be a little disciplined about it, but I don't think I'd have a ton of Sabbath songs super high up my list of favorite songs, even though they're one of my favorite bands and they'd have a lot of albums high up in favorite albums. But yeah, so I wanted to pick something that I love the production. I love the parts. It's spooky, it's long, it's got great performances by everybody. So yeah, big, long, efficient one from Sabbath, Megalomania. There you go.
Very cool that we're both going to represent a song from our favorite Sabbath albums. And mine's a little song about cocaine, Snowblind from Volume 4, coming in at number 6. Yeah, you're absolutely right about the whole Sabbath thing. It's like I have so many songs from them that I love a lot, but I mean, this barely made my top 10, right? Even though I love it, but I think in the next 10 or 20, you've got a whole bunch of them. But I just Snowblind, Children of the Grave, Heaven and Hell, Supernaut. I mean, there's like War Pigs. I still think War Pigs is one of the greatest songs of all time. Love your selection as well. But yeah, Snowblind, just absolutely love it. Love the riff, love the soloing by Iommi, love the little kind of it's just got all these little kind of changes and things. Love it. Great song.
War Pigs is one of those that would have been a great one in the boardroom, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Sit down and like, hey, take a listen. Here's we want to put this out as the first single. Take a listen to this.
And they're all like witches and black masses. No.
Yeah.
No.
All right. My number 5 choice from Thin Lizzy, Renegade, the song Renegade. Coincidentally, I just talked to Scott Gorham 2 days ago, and then actually nice. That was a cool day because I had Scott at 10:30 in the morning and Wilson at 5 o'clock. So that was really cool. But yeah, love Renegade to death. I'll say something that you can't unhear once you hear it, but it actually sounds a little bit like Betty Davis Eyes by Bonnie Tyler. It's Bonnie Tyler, right? Betty Davis Eyes.
Yes.
Pretty sure. Yeah. So it's funny. It's got a little bit of that melody to it. But love Renegade to death. What a great song with that mellowness and a super introspective Phil lyric. I think this is the best recording Thin Lizzy ever had on an album. It's a very contrarian choice for favorite Thin Lizzy album. We did a Contrarians episode on it, but it is my favorite. But easy. Over I would say Black Rose next. But I love the production. I love the introspection and the mellowness. And that song just goes to some really cool places with those big long instrumental sections where they're just hitting those long hanging chords. And then Brian Downey comes in with a really cool fill using the toms, which are recorded exquisitely, and just a really cool, strange little beat and a nice arrangement. And it's just a really good, long, introspective Thin Lizzy song. I noticed in my top 500 songs of all time book, when I did that, I took a big poll and wrote about the songs, but I stuck a list in the back. And it's funny, I had in there, I had 2 songs in my top 25. I must have been on a Thin Lizzy kick. I had Baby Please Don't Go from Thunder and Lightning, and I had The Pressure Will Blow from this album in my top. So there's a lot of songs I love on this. I could have gone with No One Told Them or It's Getting Dangerous. Again, these dark, songs that nobody kind of knows from this great Thin Lizzy album, the last super high fidelity one before the Tearaway album that they came up with next. But just love, I love that I could just listen to that instrumental stuff and just be taken away into Thin Lizzyville, and Phil's not even singing. So
I mean, that's what's so great about Thin Lizzy, right? It's they have that ability to do that. As great a frontman and singer as he was, they had all this other stuff going on, which just as pleasing to the ears, which is cool. All right, I got to ask. So you talked to Ann Wilson the other day. Are her and Nancy talking? Did you get?
I didn't even go down that road because I had so much else I wanted to do and needed to do. This was for Goldmine. I had to get one of those top 10 albums of all time. That top 10 albums that changed my life. I had to get that out of her. And so we did that, and a fair bit on Fierce Bliss, the solo album. And then I also did a cool sidebar that she was really good with, where I gave her Heart album titles and said, explain to me why this album's called this. And we went through 7 or 8 of those. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, that sounds pretty.
Yeah, we got a lot done. It was a good long interview, but I was told not to ask about any of that anyway.
Yeah, I was just curious if it came up, because there's a lot of kind of sketchy reports out there. Are they talking? Are they not talking? Some things say that they are talking, but they're just going to take different musical paths at this point. And I've heard others where they're still not talking because of all the shit that's gone on. So I was just curious, but really good solo album. I think I love her album. I listen to it a ton. It's really good. All right, my number 5, title track To Burn by Deep Purple. I love it to death. And as great as the studio version is, I think my favorite version is on the Made in Europe album, the live version there. Just amazing. It's got one of my favorite riffs from Blackmore. I mean, Coverdale and Hughes just singing up a storm. And man, how about Ian Pace on this track? Ian Pace, just one of the most underrated drummers on the planet. I've loved it since I first heard this album. I think I love it even more nowadays. I remember like going to see, we were just doing an episode with the UK Connection talking about Whitesnake. And I remember going to see Whitesnake on the Purple album tour and seeing the band play that song. And the first time I'd ever heard it live, just, man, I was in like absolute heaven. This is like one of my favorite songs of all time. And just such a great track from a really great album. And that riff, that chorus, the bridge, the whole song, masterful. Love it to death.
Yeah, and that would be my choice too, and that also would fit this idea again of an objective choice. If you were to like try to turn somebody on to Deep Purple that was 20 years younger than us, you'd have to play them something pretty flashy, right?
Yeah.
It got to the point it had all sorts of really cool stuff going on, and Richie going crazy and Ian going crazy, and so. I don't think anything else even really comes particularly close in the flash department. If you were to say, okay, it's got to have flash, maybe Stormbringer,
maybe Highway Star, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Stormbringer, and later on, really nothing. I mean, they aren't that. Actually, the Battle Rages On as a song is pretty darn impressive, right?
Yeah, and you could probably pick a couple songs off of Abandon, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah. Someday I Feel Like Screaming. Is that what it's called? That's a really cool one.
That's a great song, actually. Yeah, because that kind of touches on some different things, right? It's kind of moody and mellow and with great guitar work, the killer solo. Yeah, there's some. There's some.
Yeah.
I might have another one in a few minutes, Martin.
All right, good. Okay, so my next choice is from this album, Principle of Moments, In the Mood. I love this album, and it almost made my list. But In the Mood I picked because, again, you just listen to it and you go, what a great song that anybody could love. It could be a huge radio hit, and it was a huge radio hit. But at the same time, they're doing something pretty musically intellectual and nerdy. It's not a typical construction. It's just a weird song. And it's like you listen to it I can imagine some of the great songwriters of the world listening to that, like Diane Warren or Steven Tyler, or and anybody who's big into songwriting, Fleetwood Mac or whatever, and listening to that and being super impressed by it doing two things: being effortlessly hooky and enjoyable and a radio hit that the masses could love, or them asses, whatever you want to call them, right? And being really like, why didn't I think of that? I could see them going, oh man, he's so smart coming up with that. What a smarty pants metal thing to do, right? Or, that whole idea of just being really genius with the construction and really spare and the arrangements really novel on it. So that's what I love about it a lot. And you've got Phil Collins on it. But yeah, I'd say at the same time that it's the most lovable song on this really lovable album, it's actually weirdly the most innovative at the same time, which is pretty darn amazing. So yeah, had to pick it for that reason. Objective and subjectively great.
Yeah, that is a pretty genius song. I think I love how the song takes you through all these different places, and you really don't know what's coming next. You think it's kind of like this mellow, lush, drifting, croony type song, and then they hit. The drums are amazing on that. You get these little heavy Zeppelin-y bursts, and the great guitar work from Robbie
Blunt.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool song, and it's so like different for him.
Yeah. If that would have been on a Zeppelin album, it would have been considered one of the greatest Zeppelin songs of all time. And it would have been considered, oh my God, Jimmy Page, what he does on that with the even just that, right? The sound and the production of it and everything. People would have said, oh, it's the greatest Zeppelin song ever made, kind of thing, right?
Could you have heard that on, I think it fits, that could have fit on In Through the Outdoor totally, or even Presence would have fit right in.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely got a different production on it. And imagine John Bonham, what he would have done with it, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So John Paul Jones, like, where would the keyboards have gone? Everything, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. The old what if moment, right? Yeah. All right, where are we? Number 4. Got another title track. I got a bunch of title tracks on here. This one has to be here. This is from my favorite album by this band. It's easily my favorite song from this band. I'm pretty sure I don't know if it might be the heaviest song on my list. And it's just got a brontosaurus riff, amazing lead guitars, and the vocals are just off the charts. The title track, To the Hall of the Mountain King by Sabotage. Amazing how many songs from my top 10 album list have made it onto this list so far. I love this song so much. And again, this is another one of those songs. I listen to this at the gym. I'm playing this track 2 or 3 times in a row, without question, every single time. And it's just, and every single time I'm like, yes. That at the end with John screaming. Oh, so good. So Hall of the Mountain King, Sabotage from Florida.
And you're like, put another 10 pounds on there. Nah, let's go 15, right?
I can do it, Martin. I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. My next choice at number 3, my third favorite song of all time, from the Philip Lynott album, Old Town. Wow. What a tour de force album this is, but that song is just Phil and Dublin, and the video is amazing. He's walking around Dublin looking as cool as he ever looked, walking down the street and waving to everybody, and the girls are all smiling, and all the girls in that too look like real women, right? They look like just normal gals on the street. He's on the dock, and he's on a boat. He's standing in a little band shell, just singing this great song. It's got one of my favorite piano solos of all time from Darren Wharton. Jimmy Bain is co-writing this with him. Just a gorgeous mellow song from Phil, or Philip, on this. And there's other great songs on here too. Fatalistic Attitude, Kathleen. I could have gone with Dear Miss Lonely Hearts or Girls from the previous album, Solo in Soho. Could have gone with other Thin Lizzy songs. But yeah, this is just a tour de force of just mellow, awesome Phil, all about Dublin and his love for Ireland. And funny thing in the not funny, but one of the more magical moments from the Phil line at documentary Songs for While I'm Away, Gus there, can't remember his last name, but Gus says that he met up with Phil, and Phil told him, my love affair with Dublin is over. And he says within 6 months he was dead. And he found that a really poignant moment. But Scott told me the other day that Phil and Ireland, it's like they do interviews in America, and he'd turn the interview, if they made one mistake about Ireland, he'd turn it into a message about Ireland. He was such a patriot, Scott said. But yeah, Old Town is just perfect about that. It's your James Joyce Ulysses or Finnegan's Wake or Portrait of the Artist, from Phil, basically.
There you go. Yeah. Ah, man, so great stuff he could have done had he lived, right?
Yeah,
such a shame. All right, Martin, it's quiz time here for my number 3. I mean, we're getting into expected territory for me. So what song has an amazing Cozy fucking Powell drum intro, has brought Pete to tears numerous times in his life, is an epic opener to side 2 of this album, and is one of the most majestic heavy metal classics of all time?
Stargazer, sir.
That's right. Number 3, Stargazer by Rainbow from Rainbow Rising. I don't know what more I can say about it that I haven't said before. It's got my favorite vocal from Ronnie James Dio of all time. It's got some of my favorite drumming from Cozy Powell of all time. Man, the chorus, the whole last 2 minutes of the song, it just builds and builds and builds. So much drama, so much power, so much majesty. It's a tour de force for this band. One of the great hard rock heavy metal band lineups of all time, I think. And 8 minutes and 27 seconds of absolute perfection. Love it. Could even be higher, but no, there's 2 that come above it for me. But it's one of my favorite songs of all time.
It's their Kashmir, right? And that album is head and shoulders standing right there with Physical Graffiti and Sabotage. From around the same time, I remember Richie saying Roger came in and listened to it and he was blown away by it.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, very cool. All right, my number 2, kind of a weird choice, but a stand-in for a song that I've often called Aerosmith "Draw the Line," my favorite song of all time.
Great song.
But I put blinkers on and said, let's think about Aerosmith, even just let's stay with Aerosmith and say, is it even my favorite Aerosmith song anymore? And so I had to go with "Sick as a Dog" from Rocks instead. I just love this song. It's a Tyler Tom Hamilton composition. The recording is exquisite. Beautiful bottom end and highs. It's got those gorgeous vocal harmonies. It's got a hint of the complicated riffing that you get on Draw the Line, which are all for the same reason why I call Celebration Day my favorite Zeppelin song. I always put those 2 songs together, and now I kind of put Sick as a Dog with it as well, with just this with the riff that sort of hangs over and moves along with it and just kind of isn't in a hurry to end. It's really Stonesy. It's like the greatest Rolling Stones song the Stones never wrote. The lyric is pretty spare. There's not much to the lyric, but it's got this chill out break in it with great sound effects and kind of breathiness to it. But yeah, the riff and then the race to the finish where they pick it up and they're just the heroic Aerosmith magic Rolling Stones moment where, you know, Joey's hitting the bell of the ride and there's some piano tinkling in there. It's just one of the great magical, warm and fuzzy jammy moments of all time as well. And it's not even a super long song. It's just this great accessible song with all these amazing little parts all the way through it. So there you go. Aerosmith, Sick as a Dog.
Classic raunchy Aerosmith at their best. Yeah. Great choice. Great choice. All right. My number 2 is a song that I'll probably never be able to convince Martin that he should or could like for a variety of reasons. And it's an interesting choice here because this is maybe not a song that I would try to sell to someone who's new to Deep Purple, because it's you know, it's long. It's very long. It's very quiet in spots. It has lots of Ian Gillan screaming in it. It's got a really long Ritchie Blackmore guitar solo, some great organ solos from John Lord.
I'm glad we're not talking about Chicago here, so that's good.
Oh, there you go. No. Child in Time by Deep Purple. It's been one of my favorite songs since I was a kid. I remember being a teenager. I used to live in my parents' basement when I got to be a certain age, and I wanted to be out of the bedroom with my brother. I was like, I can't share a bedroom with him, with my younger brother, right? So we had this downstairs room that they fixed up, and I lived down there. And I remember, like, I would put this song on, whether it was from this album or from Made in Japan, and I would sit in front of my stereo with the speakers on either side, and I would play this song, and I would sit on the floor, and I would just go back and forth, and I would, air guitar to the solo. I would scream along with Ian. I would whisper along with Ian, and I would play it over and over and over and over again. And I've never gotten tired of it. And I still, like I said, get totally excited to hear this when I listen to In Rock, one of my favorite albums of all time. I can't wait till it comes on. And then when it's done, I'm like, could I listen to that again right now? All 10 minutes and 1 second of it. Yes, indeed. Replay. So yeah, I just love it. I love it because it's kind of proggy. It's kind of psychedelic. It's definitely heavy in spots. It's jammy. And personally, I love when Ian's screaming. Any song that Ian Gillan screams on, I think, is a joy to listen to. I know some people don't like when he goes that far, but I do. So that's my number 2.
Yeah, I suppose it's a pretty cool song, but it certainly doesn't fit on that album, right? It's like,
it is kind of weird on it. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. But what other album could you put it on, right? It wouldn't fit on Machine Head. I don't know if it might fit on Fireball, maybe, right? Fireball wouldn't sound so out of place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, my number 1, my favorite album of all time. And I've said this in a lot of places and over quite a few years, is from this not particularly amazing Adrian Belew album. It's a song called 1967. It's the last song on the album. And I swear to God, I've said this before. It's like the entire Beatles White Album in 5 or 6 minutes or whatever. 5:30 it is. It's the entire White Album all in one place. It's an amazing prog tour de force, but it's folky prog. It's not even I don't think there's even real heavy actual drums in it. It's just a very quiet song. It's kind of an acoustic song, goes to so many different places. Just quote a few lyrics from here. It starts off, last night I took a walk into the back of my mind through the trash and the warning signs. There was a party full of jokes and cliches. I couldn't think of anything to say. And so I slipped into the men's room there. I saw my hair the way it's never been before. It just goes on and on with these amazing lyrics. What do we got here? We've got, what's a father to do with all these schoolless engines running in circles around the wagons? What's a father to do with all these monster debts around my neck on a sad sun deck? Wow. What an amazing lyric, right? And so, yeah, just part after part is just a Beatles-esque tour de force from Adrian. He's one of my favorite rock and rollers of all time. I could have easily put Aches and Pains from the second Bears album on here. Car Caught Fire is an amazing. I think the song is called that, but the album's called anyways. The first song on that's the third Bears. The first Bears is amazing. I almost had Twang Bar King on my top albums. I could have put Lone Rhino up really high. Both of those have 2, 3, 4 songs that could have been on this list. But yeah, I don't particularly love this album, but 1967 is just an absolute masterpiece of everything you love about Adrian Belew, except for the noisy elephant sound guitar thing, right? It's more the Adrian in love with the Beatles. But you're just never bored because the song is just taking you just flash into all these exquisite, interesting acoustic passages with that great voice and these amazing lyrics. So there you go. Adrian Belew, 1967, greatest song of all time.
You know, what an amazing musician, right? I mean, he's just, most people know him from his time spent in King Crimson, but he's got this large body of solo work that has been like ignored by so many people. And it's like really different, nothing like King Crimson at all. And obviously, you know, he wears his influences on his sleeve. And I think that a lot of people who love the Beatles would just love his albums if they just gave him a chance.
Yeah, there's a picture that sort of sums up that song, I imagine. Yeah. Imagine. I mean, it's like him, you know, John Lennon Imagine kind of thing, right?
Yep.
There you go. Yeah.
Cool.
Don't like the front cover. Like I say, the album's a little electronic and kind of all over the place, but that song is not that at all. It's just an analog tour de force.
All right. My number one. It's time where I'm going to upset all of our UK viewers. Stephen and Simon, if you're watching, sorry guys. This has been my favorite song for a long time. And Martin proclaimed not too long ago that this song has probably one of the greatest heavy metal riffs of all time. I would agree with that. I think it also has one of the best vocals from this singer. And it's actually the second time he's appearing on my list here today. Still of the Night by Whitesnake from the self-titled 1987 album, the album that nobody but me and the entire universe picks as one of their favorite albums, and probably nobody picks this song, but I don't care. I love it. So it's just so heavy and metallic and just well crafted. Like I said, Sykes's riff is tremendous. The little solo break is great. The whole the kind of Zeppelin thing is great. The vocals are great, and when they play it live, it's just so good. I have such a history with this song. I think I told the story that in college, in my video production class, we actually did an entire we made a video to the music of this song. We did this whole werewolf story and to the music of Still of the Night, and it was such an amazing time putting this together. And so every time like I hear this song, I still picture the video we did and all the, you know, low budget and all that kind of stuff, but it was a lot of fun. But yeah, love it to death. My favorite song of all time, Still of the Night by Whitesnake.
Yeah, and the beauty of that riff, I mean, that raised the reputation of hair metal even with that. I mean, it raised the reputation of Whitesnake within hair metal as well, where you just thought these guys are a step above. They're regal, they've got roots, they're going to a different place, they're not giving you the obvious. Like that riff is just, and it just goes and goes and goes, and new stuff's happening all the time.
Yeah, and I get it. All the old school Whitesnake fans, you know, don't like it because it's not the bluesy Whitesnake they loved, and I get it, but doesn't mean I can't love it, and I do. So I love the bluesy stuff too. I do. Yeah, you got any honorable mentions, Martin?
Oh boy. Okay, I'll just rattle through these fast without really talking about them. But yeah, I had a list, and again, the whole process was just like the albums one. I kept sticking a song over and above it. It just kept getting knocked back, and then, you know, it's falling below my number 10, and here they are. So I have The Church Under the Milky Way. I've got Thin Lizzy, Got to Give It Up. Yes, Close to the Edge. I had no Judas Priest, Led Zeppelin, or Deep Purple. Wanted to make that point. Pretty odd. I almost had ZZ Top, Nasty Dogs, and Funky Kings on there. Almost had Heard It on the X on there. I thought of Metallica and how impressed I was when I heard Fight Fire with Fire, followed by Ride the Lightning for the first time. Amazing. Overdrive Dream Away is a very obscure, weird choice, but I thought of it because I was thinking of Still of the Night as well. And I thought, what's my other favorite riff of all time? And it's on this obscure new wave of Swedish heavy metal song, Overdrive Dream Away. And I also had Pete Townsend, Keep On Working, was fighting out with Face Dances Part 2. And I mentioned before, I've always called these some of the greatest songs of all time, moving all the way to the subjective level. Sweet Action and Queen Bohemian Rhapsody. And I almost included Liar and Keep Yourself Alive. But I think I would not have a hard time saying, take Pete and Martin out of this and just say, what's the greatest song of all time? And it might be Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, one of the greatest constructed songs of all time, right? Yeah. I in my honorable, I had to put a Queen song, and I love Son and Daughter. Just love it. So heavy, killer riff. Emerald by Thin Lizzy actually was my number 10 before I got the pop thing and said I have to include those two pop songs that I love so much. Silly Love Songs by Wings. Love that. Love it. Sabbath, Children of the Grave, Heaven and Hell. Warm Wet Circles by Marillion from the Clutching at Straws album. Really love that a lot. Black Knight by Deep Purple. Gimme Shelter by the Stones. Totally love that. The Rover by Led Zeppelin. Ends of the World by Gary Moore. Supper's Ready by Genesis. Got to have a big long epic here somewhere. Epitaph from King Crimson, Core of the Crimson King album. Siberian Catru from Yes, from Close to the Edge. Rainbow Demon by Uriah Heep.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
No More Mr. Nice Guy, Alice Cooper, 22 Acacia Avenue by Iron Maiden, and I wanted to fit a Priest song in here somewhere, so Saints in Hell.
Nice. Very cool.
Oh yeah, a little bit of variety. So there you have it, everybody. Our 10 favorite songs of all time, at least for today.
Done in exactly an hour.
Exactly an hour. That's right. We're getting pretty efficient here, Martin. Very, very cool. All right, to go over the hour, Martin's going to tell us what's going on his side over there with the Contrarians and the podcast and new books coming in. What do you got, Martin?
Yeah, just writing away. So martinpopoff.com for the books. And we do have a Contrarians that'll come up soon where Ralph talked about the final cut. That was cool. And my latest History in 5 Songs podcast episode was no top end to go with no bottom end. And I'm drawing lots of weird pictures of rock stars with pencil crayon on black ink and making little cards out of them and prints and stuff. And that's been taking up a lot of my time as well. But I have 4 or 5 books that I have to work on at the same time. So lots happening.
Yeah, those prints are coming out really good. Yeah, have you thought about maybe making a book of all of them? I mean, it's
I don't know about a book. Because the scary thing about books always is how expensive color is, right? I mean, if I got a publisher, maybe, but I don't know. I don't know what format let's get 700 or 800 of them done first, and then we'll talk.
Okay, very cool. All right. So as far as programming here on the channel, we got the UK Connection coming up tomorrow with Simon Bray and Stephen Reed. We're going to be looking at some concert experiences from 1991 through 1996. That's coming up tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the States. And then Sunday morning, we've got album homework assignment. Butch Jones and myself going head to head. We've got Lynn Versace hosting the show, so we got a little mini Hudson Valley Squares thing going on, the album homework assignment show. So that's coming up 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. And then very cool show on the Hudson Valley Squares on Monday. We're going to revisit a year in the history of music and pick our favorite albums from that year. We're going all the way back to 1973. So everybody on the panel is going to be picking their favorite albums released in 1973. So that's coming up. And then Tuesday in the Prague seat, we're going to be talking about our favorite krautrock albums. So our favorite bands and albums from Germany, from that whole school of krautrock. So we got Ken Golden and Steve Feigenbaum and a couple others that are going to be appearing on that particular show. So that should be kind of fun and a little eye-opening for me, I guess, because I like some krautrock, but I know those two guys have totally got me beat on their knowledge of that. So I'm going to do a little learning on that show, I think, which is always a good thing. Always a good thing. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. For Martin Popoff, I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you next Friday here at the Funhouse. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.